Yes.
All right.
And we are online.
Okay. Greetings and salutations. What's up, Thor?
What's happening? Good to see y'all.
Yeah.
Very nice to see you.
Yeah. What's your Bock Saga story, or what's your story in general?
Me?
Yeah.
My story? Shoots. I'm from Oakland, California, born and raised. Lived there my whole life until about 3 years ago. I moved up to the Sierra Nevadas, gold country. So that was a big move for me. Yeah, been growing up in Oakland was pretty interesting. Was involved in like hip hop and graffiti and yeah, just kind of like cool stuff was going on in the Bay. So I was getting down and yeah, it was about actually around 2002, 3 when I got the 9/11 wake up. My homie was like, check this website out, 9/11. I was like, whoa, crazy. And then from there, I ended up like learning about fluoride and looking into, ancient civilizations and crop circles. And so just went in straight into research and started going hard, collecting books and documentaries and just telling everyone about everything I'm learning about and being that crazy guy for a while. And yeah, just, learning stuff, practicing it. And yeah, I just ended up meeting a lot of interesting people along the way and did some travels. Went to a couple cool places: Cuba, Jamaica, Thailand, Taiwan, Ecuador, Peru, um, amongst other places. And yeah, just found out about the Bock Saga on a higher side chats about 4 and some years ago. And yeah, it kind of blew my mind. And being named Thor as my birth name, it's also been an interesting
Cool.
situation. Being named that, I feel like it's very much steered my life path in a weird way, or I don't know. Everyone's like, "That's your real name," and well, you look like a Thor, and what can I say? But yeah, when just learning more about the etymology of my name, and I was big into etymology actually before I found the Bock Saga. So I was, collecting books and watching videos on words, and I love wordplay and puns, and I love freestyling and rapping and just music and dance and the beats and yeah, just the earth, gardening, uh, you know, metaphysics, esoterics, all that good stuff.
You're always a big reader?
Yeah, man. My mom used to say I never left anywhere without carrying a book in my hand. So and a lot of my early memories, I remember elementary school, like choosing the book I was gonna check out. We had that library day, and I just remember like being so like, all right, what am I gonna get today? And like I still remember like I loved Roald Dahl. Remember that author? I think he was from Europe.
Yeah.
I loved
The
his
BFG.
books. Yeah, all those books. I read all of his books. I love nature books. Like I would always get the field guides with all the pictures of the animals and the trees and the plants, and I would just study them all. And I was in the Boy Scouts and went on like 50-mile backpack trips, and was a big outdoors guy and went camping a lot with my family. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's cool. It's funny how many places, not funny, but it's interesting how many places have oak that are like oak related, especially here in California, because I grew up in a place called Ojai, and they have their own like unique oak tree that's unique to Ojai, and it's a small little valley. And it's unique because this valley like faces east west, the sides of the valley. So the valley goes in a direction that isn't found anywhere else in America specifically. And so you always get like these pink moments, and then a special oak tree and a special orange tree grows only in this little valley.
That's cool.
And yeah, and then we have Thousand Oaks, and then you're from Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland has always kind of been a big culture hub, a lot of history and, whatever you want to call it, civil rights movements, and a lot of notable musicians, and just, not just the Bay Area, but Oakland specific has always been like, it's kind of known, and whenever I've traveled and people, I say I'm from Oakland, everyone always has something to say too, like, oh, you're from Oakland? Oh, isn't it crazy out there? And I'm like, well,
yeah,
if you're from there, you know how to live there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the oak tree, yeah, that was a big Bock Saga hit for me being from Oakland. And yeah, love the oak tree.
I never appreciated trees until the Bock Saga and some of Longo's stuff on like ancient trees too. And I remember, and it really hit me because I would go on these long hikes in Washington State, and like for all the people that live there, they don't hike very much. But I was going every single weekend. I was just trying to find a longer and longer hike, and my favorite hike was through this like old growth forest, and it was like the trees were so epic. They're huge, and I was just like so awe-inspired, and it was like trying to chase that hike every other hike I went on, and it was like one of the first ones I went on, and I was like just trying to find this hike that can equal the experience I had like on this first hike. It's like losing my virginity or something like that kind of experience.
But you can have like 1,000 years old trees there and all those.
Yeah, they're huge. It was like some of the ones where like to be in the picture, you had to take the picture 20 yards away to even like get the idea of the size of the tree that I'm standing in front of.
Yeah, unfortunately, they cut down a lot of the big trees all over the East Bay and all the way up the coast. There's still some, obviously, but the biggest ones, like I'm sure they took as like trophies or like.
Yeah.
Then they plant
Spending
some
like
other
a week.
tree they plant an invasive tree that takes over and prevents the natives from being able to live, and it's fire hazard. It's a whole thing. So.
Isn't that a big thing in Saga that like I think Eeyore would say that it was the quality of the Andes in the forest of say Finland versus living in a town or a city a little further south in Europe. But this is like where the virility comes in to play and makes everything more potent and and just like purifies the body, but like with nutrients, kind of pure, like more spirit or higher quality spirit or something like that.
Well, in those deep, like dank, moist forests, you're gonna have huge amount of microbes more than anywhere else that are just thriving there. So you're gonna be probably breathing in some really good ozone that the plants are putting off, and obviously even taking your shoes off and even touching dirt with your hands is healthy for you.
Yeah, jump into the moss.
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
people-
why Suomi is the happiest land in the country. We have so much moss around that you can just jump in the moss and breathe it.
I love looking
atmosphere.
at moss. It just, that green is just so vibrant.
Atmosphere.
Atmosphere. Back in the moss.
You wouldn't have an atmosphere without the moss.
Yeah, there's I haven't been there in a while, but have you heard of Mount Tamalpais, Dustin? It's in Marin.
Mm-mm.
So Marin County, it's right across
I
from
know
Oakland,
Marin.
San Francisco. It's like the three kind of areas of the bay. It's like across from the San Francisco and Golden Gate Bridge, and up by Mount Tamalpais, which is named after I think it's one of the native words. I don't know what it means currently, but anyway, I was up there once, and there's, I want to say, off memory, maybe 6 huge stones put in a circle on the cliff that looks right out over the ocean. And the first time I was there, I was like, this is not a random stone placement. Like it's like a mini Stonehenge, but they're just stones, and they're in the perfect ring. And I was tripping out on it. And I asked my buddy who grew up not far from there, and he said that it was actually, they dated the stones by the lichen on it,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was actually older than the mountain next to it, Mount Tamalpais. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, but I've been meaning to go back there and check it out because it always tripped me out. And it's right there, like looking out over the whole ocean.
We've talked about that word lichen, right? Lichen. What is it? It's lav, right? Lav.
Yeah, love. Yeah.
Lav. So
You consider-
in root is lav, which backwards is vol.
Yeah.
It's one of those survival foods you can actually like eat lichen if you're in like a emergency situation out in the woods. You can eat it.
Yeah, I think that's one, like during wartime, they started to eat things in forest, and this is one of them. And then you take the bark of the trees and start to make, like you use it instead of the wheat. When you have low on wheat, you start to take the bark of the tree, and then you start to mix them, and then you make your bread. And nowadays
you mix
we
the
also have,
lichen and the bark.
I'm not fully sure how you mix the lichen into it, but the bark from the tree,
I was just asking.
bark from the tree you mix, at least in this way. And then we also make these kind of drinks from the tree. When you have the bark, then you have this kind of very soft wood in between, because before it comes hardwood. From this middle tree, you can make this kind of drink, which is pine tree based.
Is there root words differentiating those layers?
There is Finnish words at least.
I would just call it bark, outside bark or inside bark, but is there a different name for what you're describing? I'm just curious because it seems like if nature's named after,
I have done this study through in Finnish, so I need to check up for root words.
So there's words in Finnish though that describe it.
For these different parts. Yeah. Probably there is for root also.
So what do you think was happening in the stone circles?
I mean, I'm sure it was just like you might even be able to see it from the ocean. I mean, it's not super huge, but maybe it was a marker or, I'm not sure because there's not really many. There's like old stone walls, like stacked, where you dry stack rocks that they don't really know who built them, and throughout California. And there's a lot of other out of place artifacts and stuff, but I haven't heard anyone ever talk about this. That's why I was interested in going back there and checking it, because I know there's a few boots on the ground people in the Bay Area in California that are going around looking at these different anomalies and potentially destroyed buildings of the past and all that.
Yeah. And it's so crazy trying to like see everything with the Bocksaga time frames. You're like, would it even be up there or would it be lower? You know?
I forgot. My friend said they dated it too, and I don't remember how old it was, but it was significant. Like okay, wow, that's that's old if it was placed there by someone with intelligence.
Yeah.
But also like these 10 tropical kingdoms could almost reach to that area also.
Mm.
So it can be like Atlantis time, so to say, if we go.
And I think
during Atlantis time, the ocean levels would be much lower.
You would probably be able to actually sail like into like Utah or into Nevada probably way back then, because there was all these inland lakes there. Not just California, but Nevada had a huge inland lake, and I think you can still currently take a boat like up into Utah from like up by Washington or something.
Okay.
Or Oregon maybe. Yeah.
Sure.
Back there.
That's what like when the Grand Canyon was still alive. Or
yeah, we got well, I know we have like 1,900 dams in California alone, but those are also all tributary. Basically, the water in California is like coming from up north, like where the inland of Washington State, and then there's some coming in from like the Colorado area, and all of them are blocked off, and then every little tributary and river coming off like the main vein is blocked off and dammed and everything like that. I mean, even today, the water levels would probably be pretty crazy if they were allowed to be natural.
I heard Lake Tahoe is really just a giant spring, and it's just continually flowing out water. Also, Clear Lake, I heard, is one of the oldest lakes in the U.S. Have you heard about that?
No, I know there's.
Yeah.
Where is that?
It's in Lake County. It's I would say east of Mendocino.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Can't recall the stories off top, but I've heard some interesting myths and creation stories based around that lake and how it relates to the story of Turtle Island and all types of interesting stuff. But
yeah, and you also have like a Pyramid Lake, which is like 200 miles away.
So that's where they say that one of the inland ocean was, where Pyramid Lake still is. That whole area of Nevada, giant inland ocean, and they have the fossils to prove it actually too. Nevada is filled with all types of interesting stuff. But yeah, I was thinking too, circling back to the Oakland and Eck, the Native American tribe from Oakland is named the Ohlone, which got me thinking, the Ohlone from Oakland, and that sounds a lot like Olan, the acorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hit me as soon as you said it.
So that one had me thinking too. And then even within the Ohlone, there's like a dozen different tribelets that probably each have different dialects, and some of the names have like SEN, SON, SIN at the end of these tribelets, and I was like, these sound kind of like Scandinavian. So I kind of like delved further into that a little bit and was kind of like, there might be something here, but could just be the wordplay. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, if you start saying the words, I mean, Johan here speaks both, so Finnish and root. It'd be interesting to bounce some word plays off of him and have him search his brain.
Well, another thing is that in Oakland, there's a lake, Temescal, and Temescal is also the name of the sauna or sweat lodge in the Americas. So that was also interesting to put together. And we just recently were talking about Temescal and what those words can mean too.
Mezcal is also the drink that you made from cactus.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah.
Oh, Dylan's coming in.
Nice.
Cool.
Hold on. I
Yep.
answered his phone call, so it booted me out of here. But
Yeah, you need to add him, yes.
Dylan, boom, add. Unavailable. What happened? Yeah, mezcal. Oh, there he is.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
What's up, guys? What's up, Thor?
What's happening, brother?
Nothing much.
All right, Dylan.
Nice to see you
Good to
guys.
see ya. Yeah, you too. You too. We're or Thor was talking about Temescal, and it's one of the places in California.
Yep.
And we were looking into thinking about the word and pointing out that like mezcal is like also like cacti, te mezcal, and then te. It starts with te.
Yeah, it's tea from mezcal.
Yeah.
Mezcal.
Mm.
It's a trippy sauna.
And it's there's a city that my grandpa used to live in nearby there, which is Elsinore or Lake Elsinore.
Mhm.
And then you were just, Thor, you were just saying that SIN word, so Elsinore.
Yeah.
Elsinore. Anyway, but yeah.
There is also a place in Sweden called Helsingör, which is a
I've
little
heard
bit
that.
similar.
So usually that's like referring to singing, sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I actually got
Singing
brought
of the knowledge of the raw.
I was just gonna say I was brought into the Native American spiritual path called the Red Road, maybe in like 2007 or 8, and got to go to a lot of temescals or sweat lodges, and the stones is one of the most important things in that ceremony, and the songs. Everyone, or there's usually 4 songs that are sung per round, and I was just kind of thinking too, the songs in these ceremonies are very important, and it's something that's like the oral tradition is passed down, and you have to learn the song. And even if it's in a different language, I've had to learn songs in multiple languages I don't even really know that well. So it's like you have to learn how to say it, because if you don't sing the song right, you're transmitting something wrong. So it's just like the saga, you have to learn it so you can transmit it correctly. So there's this tradition of the importance of these songs, and it's that's one of the biggest things, is creating this vibration and harmony through everyone singing, and bringing in that repetition of like over and over and over, and everyone is harmonizing, and yeah, it's just a really beautiful thing.
The chorus, it's so important. I think I found throughout multiple European areas that if you didn't have the song, you didn't have civilization.
Yeah. Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
So
the song is very, very important across culture, whether it be for medicinal purposes, historical purposes, whatever it is. The song is important.
Yeah.
It's also
it's
how
also
the
song mixed together.
Sorry?
The rhyming.
Yes.
Starts turning into singing and
Mhm.
kind of similar cultures.
That's
Yeah, we
like
were talking about that with the Kalevala, right? Is this, you know, the collection of many songs, and like in the form of poetry to transfer the knowledge.
Mhm.
The Contele.
I could see everyone talking, or rather singing in rhyme, you know, early
Yeah.
on, and just being a more fluent way that sounded more beautiful, you know. And also, like when I was reading your book, Jerusalem,
Okay.
I was like, whoa, this is written in rhyme. This is like, it blew me away. I like read the first introduction and I was just like, I had to put it down and like think like, what? And then it kept going. I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
It has this kind of chronology that it's rhyming a lot in the beginning when it's paradise and everything is fine, but then when it's going a little bit further and turning into crisis, then the rhyme goes away because kind of the happiness of the culture goes away at the same time. It's cool.
Yeah, man, rhyme and reason.
Yeah.
Bete. Yeah.
Better?
Yeah, Bete. Yeah, and yeah, Alfarnas Bete, and then also Ramza. Yeah.
Ramsa, yeah.
Ramza.
Ramsa
I
is
think
a
of
rhyme. Yeah.
yeah, I think of like Ram, like maybe the animal got its name after the action, the ram, you know, because and Ramsa, you're basically receiving, you know, receiving the rhyme, the ram.
Yeah, I'm gonna start talking in rhyme only. So I'm gonna try that one day. Just be like, I'm only gonna speak in rhyme and see how
Yeah,
that
I
goes.
hear it. Have you seen Harry Mack?
Oh yeah, I'm up
Yeah,
on him
he's
for
pretty,
sure.
yeah, he's pretty cool.
He's on another level.
Yeah. He's like a freestyle rapper, and he just asks people to give him like 3 words, and then he raps on the topic and rhymes, but he's also like can sing and like rap in all these different styles. So based on the beat is how he, you know, it does it, and he's just extremely talented. I showed my mom, and she was like, she likes Harry Mack. she's a total
I
like
swear to
70s
God, man.
hippie.
The one he did a song for that lady who was like 90 years old in the wheelchair. He just walked up to this lady and it was like her 90th birthday, and he did a song about her, and it like made me cry. It was like amazing.
Oh, well, yeah, I've seen that one too.
she had like 8 kids and like 30 grandchildren, and like she lived some great life, and he rapped about it and made a song with the chorus right on the spot, and I was like,
yeah. Yeah, our words have these powers, and you know, they have these meanings. Even if like you don't know the actual meaning, it's still kind of invoked. And I noticed that like even in like regular conversations, I'll notice people will start pairing their words with similar words, and they don't realize they're doing it, or I don't even realize I'm doing it. Or if I, you know, listen back to something, I'll notice, you know, these different patterns in the way we talk and express, and how they come out. And I'm sure it's different in different languages, which is the whole purpose of them being created in the first place, was to describe different things. Dylan, you're really into the languages, and you go into other different languages too, right?
I do. I'm not as good, I would say, with my words as Thor is, you know, the poetry. But I do enjoy the language. I like to find the common thread between the languages. And this is where it kind of threads through with the history, the archaeology, the language. You know, you can kind of find those common threads. That's what's really, really interesting me with the Bock Saga. When you're talking about the chorus and how powerful the words are, it just brings back, I mean, I'm pulling something off the shelf in my brain of like mystery cults, for instance, in Greece. And there's written knowledge that these people would sing as they were setting bones. They would sing as they were preparing medicines. So it wasn't just the physical pharmacology or botanical part of the medicine, but it was the actual the sound as well. It had to go in pair. You had to have the sound with the physicality with whatever they're producing. Otherwise, it wasn't working. So it's really, really interesting. It's all music.
That reminds me of this theory that if you speak good to the plant will be well, and these water molecule things, like the singing to make the medicine. It's really interesting.
And it reminds me, I think I was telling Thor and Dustin, in Finnish, many of the words for plants tell you what the plants do, as far as I recall. Especially back before the crusade, before the witches were killed off. These women knew what the plants did and how they could benefit you based on the name. So it was also the rhyme or the rhythm of the plant name could tell you what it meant or what it did. So maybe they sang to it, and maybe the plant sang back. We don't know.
Yes, they are named in some way, the plants at least, and nature has a tone of itself, a music of itself.
Even in English, there's an herb called eyebright, and of course, it's good for your eyes. So I mean, that's just the first one that came up. I probably should drink some eyebright tea here. Looking at all these screens, you feel me? Man,
I haven't familiarized myself into this plant name in this perspective, but it's kind of like in some Finnish plants, you can see that mushrooms names, you can find the meaning of the mushroom just in the name. And it's interesting topic.
I wanted to go ahead.
I was going to say, I was telling Thor and Dustin as well earlier in the week, I find it's part of this lost history, this woman side of the saga that we don't know as much about, unfortunately, because a lot of the botanicals and pharmaceuticals, it comes from the woman side with the teas and with whatever they were doing in their Greenland. And that's, I feel like we're missing out without all that knowledge. It's really unfortunate.
That is the mathematique, We think of it as numbers now, but it's actually nature,
And even numbers itself. So in the Druidic practices in Northern Europe, all the way down to the Mediterranean mystery cults, women were the ones that carried on mathematics, as in geometry, but they also carried on pharmaceuticals, as in medicine. So it was all in one. It wasn't separated at the time. Where we separate it, put lines between it now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I did a ceremony called Vision Quest, where you fast on a mountaintop by yourself for 4 days with no food or water, and then that's the first year, and then it goes on for 4 years, and then you do 7, 9, 13. And you get some food and water later on, but your nourishment actually is the people in the camp that are supporting the Vision Questers. They sing to us for our nourishment. So in the morning, you start hearing the drum, boom, 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 boom. And everyone in camp that is supporting us on the mountain during our quest, they sing 4 songs to us in the morning. And that's how we get our nourishment, is from them singing to us. And then they sing to us again at night.
Powerful.
And we get our voice taken away in the Temescal the night before. So at a certain point, we're not allowed to speak anymore, the people going up, and then we don't talk for the whole time we're up there, and we just get our nourishment from them. It's pretty trippy. And interestingly enough, the lineage was it's a North American and a South American that I worked with, but the woman from Ecuador is actually a woman, and she's indigenous from, the rainforest in between Peru and Ecuador, and she's like this very short, powerful woman, and I got to learn a lot from her, essentially from the women's side. And she actually has a school of secrets for women only, and the school of the vagina, stuff like that. And so, you've heard the word Florida and Florida water, and just the power of making these flower essences, and her mother taught her how to make them. And you know, these ancient ways that are still passed on. So it's really cool to get to see it now and learning about what you're into, Dylan, talking about all these secret medicines and things that the women had, and I think some of them still do have it. So it's a good thing.
The kulpa, the woman's kulpa, you know, is the cup of their sacred essence. This is where their medicines come from. This is where their medicines are mixed, is with up in their kulpa, which is interesting. You find that all over. I'm familiar with a little bit of the Florida, not actual the state, but down south, they call a lot of those essences they make from the plants. But I think I was telling you as well that in some of these Aegean mystery schools, medicines were synthesized through the body. So women would ingest different toxins or different botanicals, and their body would synthesize that, and their ejaculate would actually be the medicine because their body transformed chemically those toxins, and what came out of them was an easier digestible version of the toxin that could be used for medicine. So there's great history about this. Medea, Medea, famous witch, cult queen, she was able to cure a man in Italy from a poisonous snake bite because she had been through the mystery of the venom and had been ingesting venom. She was able to take some of her ejaculate and give it to him, and he was cured of this deadly snake bite. It was so amazing to the people that they dropped everything they were doing and immediately built a temple to her.
Hell yeah, that's that. When I think about my journey into the Bock Saga, when you get to the Eeyore tapes, you don't realize how deep he's actually going until you already have like kind of the basic foundation of like kind of what the sound system is, how it exerts itself into words, but when you really get into you guys have been just hearing you talk, it's making me think of how he was very distinct on how the difference between the feeling from the man is an outward feeling, but for the feeling for women is the inward feeling. And so naturally they deal with what's coming inside them. And so yeah, that's super cool, because I don't think that would be the same for men.
That's a great take. That's something that I caught on to as well when I was studying these medicines of the mystery cult. It was all about ingesting or bringing into the body the external toxins and then bringing out of the body medicines. And it was always done by women. So men couldn't bring in these toxins. They always had to receive the antidote to their dote. They couldn't receive the dote because they would die.
That's even in the word, mathematik, so mathematics, but the ma, and you have the t, but that teak part is like the time is representing our time here, TikTok. So it's not just all time, but kind of the concept of time. So drinking tea would help you live longer, or things like that. And this knowledge, that's interesting.
Or the knowledge of cool. When to drink, what time to drink which teas.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know botanicals, but it's better to pluck certain fruits or certain flowers on full moons. And if you go into the science of this, it's because of the flow within those plants. They're opened up more, so there's more nourishment, there's more vitamins inside those plants during those times. So it is very important, the timing.
I like that word botanical also. Because boo would be Bhutan East. Right, Johan?
Yeah, it's
botanical.
Bhutan.
Because you have the boo, which is like nest, and then ta to take, and then nisk. What about in Finnish?
Nick is then teak. It's like this teak things. But also boot in itself is like the antidote, the healing. The boot or something is like to heal. There is like that also in it.
When you're
and then is the Buddha.
If you're making a tea or an extract, sometimes you might want to use the root. Sometimes you might want to use the stem. Sometimes you might want to use the leaf. Sometimes you're using the flower. Sometimes you're using the pollen. Sometimes you're using the whole plant. So it is helpful to know when things are mature enough, depending on what your purpose is. So,
and every plant is different also.
true.
Some
I
like
just
full moon, some like new moon.
you can say the word in Finnish for botanical. It's kind of a long one, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But I see its parts, so this is going to be the most interesting part of this word, in my opinion. It's
like the botanical part.
kasvitieteellinen.
Kasvitieteellinen, yeah.
So you got,
Kasvitieteellinen.
but right in there you got viti, like vitality, vt, and you
It's
have te.
Kasvi is a plant.
But
Tiede is science. Tieteellinen is scientific. So botanic is plant scientific when you literally translate it.
Nice. Yeah, that's interesting. But combine still inside breaking those up even to smaller parts, you have kas, vit. Wait, where is the word broken up?
Kasvi.
Vit. Vit
So
is
you take kasvi and
white,
vitality, and then you have vital.
Yeah, and then even scientific, it has te in there.
Yeah.
Very emphasized. You know, so something to do with science still has to do with the T.
Because tie is a road. Tieteellinen is this extra endings to make it tific.
Cool. Sorry.
Okay.
That's my I love that stuff. I love breaking these words up because that's botanical.
Yeah.
You know, so this anyway. Cool.
The timing, I think it's just so important to harp on the timing of using these special plants. So in the Greek, we get orgasm or orgasmic. And what that means is the budding or the perfect time in which the fruit or the flower is putting out the perfect fruit or flower. It's that perfect budding time. But it also could mean wantful lust if you're talking about a man. So it's that budding or lustful time, or when they know that it has the most, or the precipice. It has the how can I say? It's the best, or I guess it's the best time to use that plant. It's the best time because it has the most nutrient, it has the most growth, it has the most everything at that point.
Yeah, I mean, some plants, they reach their apex when they flower and then they die, or that's it, and then they come back next year. But some plants just perpetually keep growing. So yeah, it's cool to watch plants and how they develop and whatnot. And then yeah,
interesting about for instance, the oak tree, whatever grows on the oak was sacred to the Druids, for instance. And what grows on the oak tree is the mistletoe. And the mistletoe, it fruits in winter, unlike most other fruiting plants of the north. So it's these things that they caught on to. They can watch the plants, they can watch the nature and figure out what goes against the grain, and that may be sacred because it's going against the grain, essentially.
And the mistletoe itself has a lot of meaning also into it.
I was just about to say,
we don't find any more much trees which have the mistletoe, which are creating. You can find just a few places. But the berry of the mistletoe becomes like the berry of the holy wood. And that's then connected back to Ukko again.
I used to sell mistletoe when I was younger.
Did you climb up to the tree and pick them down also?
Yeah, we went up the tree and cut it down, and we would sell it around the holidays.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
I just remember that.
In the Aeneid, for instance, the Sibyls tell Aeneas that he must go pick the golden bough, and that's his key to the underworld or to the reincarnation, right? So another tie back into the oak.
I was just thinking of Yggdrasil, and then you have Sil.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know about TOE, T-O-E? The theory of everything.
It's your toy.
I dropped a heavy tool on my big toe a couple days ago. It hurt like a mug.
Sure.
It made me think about the theory of everything on the spot. I just stopped everything and I was like, all right.
Be this Thor toe.
Torto.
Yeah, your big toe.
Yeah, you could actually use that kind of words for it also.
Oh, what is the word for it?
Varvas. Like the big toe is isovarvas, big toe. And in Eeyore speaking, you have varvas. Varv is like a round. When you run around, you run a varv. Then you have as.
So
It's like a turn.
Bringing it back to the poison and the medicine. I know a lot in like South American medicine, shamanism, they work with a lot of different plants that are poisonous, but they have benefits also. So whatever you're going through the poison, but to get the benefit. And these shamans, they ingest these poisons, they smoke them, they put it in their blood. And there's a theory where they store their magic in the phlegm from all the poisons they ingest in their lungs. And there is a practice where they pass their magical phlegm onto their understudy by coughing it up and spitting it through a tube into the lungs of the understudy to pass on his magic that he's accumulated or her in their lungs through their whole life. And so, I've been to ceremonies where the chiefs, they're chiefing, literally, they're smoking the whole time. Like they're constantly blazing up a bowl of tobacco, or they're rolling up corn husk tobaccos like this big, just like pop, pop, chiefing the whole time. And I actually remember the first ceremony I went to, when we rolled up at the beginning of the ceremony. We got our tobacco and we put it in the corn husk, and we just sat there and smoked and prayed with our tobacco. And before I even ate the peyote, I was like having these effects just from that tobacco and entering into this prayer mode that maybe I hadn't really accessed consciously before, and learning that the tobacco actually unifies your left and right brain hemispheres, which allows you to, enter this more deeper prayer mode, which is pretty interesting.
Do you know what tobacco is in root?
You're talking about tupaca?
Just tubak.
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 We pronounce it tubak.
To the buck.
To the buck.
But yeah, in Finnish it would be tubaka. The aka. Something like that. Or pa, like for the pipe, aka.
A tupa is like the house, like an old way of saying like the place where you live. The bo is like a tupa also.
So the house of aka. Wow.
Or the tupa I've heard is maybe the place in which they inhalate, or they smoke without physically smoking. They may fill up the whole area with smoke for everyone in the house.
That's like the first type of building in the lodge house, which you don't have windows or anything. That's you have smoke inside.
I remember that same first ceremony I did after everyone had ingested peyote. Everyone was getting well, throwing up. And I was the only one that hadn't thrown up yet, but I knew I had to do it. And I was just like, all right, get this out of me, get this out of me. And then finally I started puking. And someone came up and tried to give me water. And the chief was like, no water yet. We're working with the cedar. And then I just put this handful of cedar on the fire. And they came up and fanned me with these bird feathers with like, you know, insane amount of cedar smoke. I was just like, all right. And then, while I'm puking in a bag, you know, crying.
Seeing the stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
In the Greek, to get to that orgasmic level or that precipice of purpose, you have to see the stars, or the ousteria, which is you get out of your mind, you know, to the point it's just too much, but you get to that point where it's perfect.
Mm.
And a lot of the time they have to use the smoke inhalation to do that. They have to fan you with the smoke. They just have to hotbox until you get there.
Yeah, that's another side of botanic, that which smoke causes which things also.
Mm-hmm.
What's ousteria? What's that referring to?
So in the Greek, the STR, you can tie that back to anything that's going to be reaching the mental or physical precipice. So this star, STR, that would be like what the Scythians called marijuana, for instance. And they didn't smoke it. They would put it into incense and mass burn it within buildings, so everyone would be under the influence. And it's just getting up there. So it's another interesting point. They did this in Greece and Rome as well. Before they would have senatorial meetings, everyone would be high on cannabis. They would be putting massive amount of cannabis on the big pyres, the big tripod burning areas. So everyone would be of the same like mind when they start to discuss politics.
Mm.
There's a lot of incenses that are made with specific plants and resins that can cause the similar reaction. Like one, for instance, is the Syrian rue, which has high amounts of DMT in it. And that was like a common incense in certain parts, maybe in the Middle East or Persia.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Syria,
then they would,
Greece, yeah.
and they would also use the dye from the Syrian rue in their carpets. So someone said that that's, if you sit on these carpets and you light the incense and you're sitting on the carpet dyed with the Syrian rue, you might take a magic carpet ride. You never know.
Mm.
It's so interesting you bring up the dye, because I think we discussed like Phoenicians quite a bit. The purple is really important, because along with the purple dye comes these osteria moments, because they're mixing these dyes, or they're using the byproducts in the dyes, the byproducts of these chemicals. So dye, if you can follow the purple, you'll find out a lot.
Mm. Which is blue and red. So even to get that blue dye in the first place is not an easy task. That's like one of the most challenging colors to get in the first place. Same thing with a red. In fact, there's currently a color paint that of red, a certain red, that to this day they've never been able to get it. And there's a $1 billion industry behind this specific color red that they cannot get.
Wow.
Sounds like a waste of resources.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a video of a guy extract a blue pigment from lapis lazuli stone, doing this like, must have been like a 15 to 20 step process to purify it and get the pigment and the paint. It was insane. It's like ancient technique.
Yeah, I was continuing to think about how like this woman side of the thing seems so mysterious, but just on the concept of what the women were doing, this paint, and it feels more like a man's thing, because we're dealing with the outward. You would paint something and the colors, whereas even they even have different scripts, right? The man's side is the angular writing, holes and holes, whereas the sling script, like this cursive, is the feminine side. But also, you think about it, that would be something you would put on the leaf. You can like write, you know, this sling script on the leaf, and the script itself resembles leaves. And so it's like kind of like when you write in cursive, the whole word is connected, you know, through the vines and the leaves. Kind of interesting.
Hold that thought there. I have a good. I'll find it here.
That's why I like graffiti and what's called writing, is because it's an evolution of letters and form of everything, and even people making up their own words, changing the spelling of words, putting whatever they want anywhere they want to kind of battle the modern day advertisement bombardment, and you know. As far as art forms and creativity, it's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I saw this. Maybe you sent it to me, but it was this guy who's been working on this landscape project where there's no angles. There's no everything's, you know, rounded, and the buildings, the seating, but everything, and especially, you know, here in this society, is all the rooms are square. You know, have dark corners and things like that. And it also reminds me of like Topher Gardner. He does like builds like dome houses, so there's no corners and no dark spaces. And when you build buildings like that, there are no spiders. Spiders aren't interested in you know, architecture and the shape, which is also kind of interesting.
Yeah, I was in Hawaii a few years ago, and there was it was an aircrete workshop down the street that my friend was catering for. So I went down to check it out, and he's actually like the grandson of Kabril Gibran, the author, and he, I think, helped figure out how you can use like 1/5 the amount of cement by putting air bubbles into it. You can make these giant cement blocks that you can pick up with one hand that float. And he's making these like dome houses out of it around the world that are super easy to make. Like you said, like no spiders will go in there. Hurricane proof, you know, because you've got the dome, so everything just kind of goes around it. Pretty cool concept.
Back to the leaf. There's something that I had here, the Beth Louis Neon tree alphabet. This was an alphabet that was found in the Cymric, or the Welsh Druids, and they had a whole alphabet. Each letter represented a tree or a shrub, and the mark for it was very cursive or circular-like as well. But these same leaf letters were also found in the Sibyls of Greece as well. So in the caves of the Sibyls, they would write on the leaves. And it harkens back to tea. It harkens back to the botanicals and their own language as well. So the Beth Louis Neon tree alphabet is a good one to look up.
There's some divination techniques I've read about where you throw sticks or leaves, or you know, see how different patterns on leaves emerge and stuff like that. Kind of interesting.
Give me a moment.
Yeah.
Or like when they still do that in Scandinavia, Johan, right? Like you put something in the cup and the way it solidifies.
Oh, the tin. The tinsel.
Tin. Yeah.
The New York tin. Yeah. Saga says that it's an old saga story also. It's just a tradition that has been left, but the real meaning in the saga says that during New Year, you have the tin which you warm up, and then you put into the bucket, and then you lift up this piece. And then when you have this piece and you put it in a wire to hang, and then you put a candle, and then the candle will reflect on the wall, like how Earth was created. So when it will be spinning, you will see on the wall the Earth, and then its mountains coming up and so on.
Well, That's dope.
That
And
is
now what-
super cool.
You know what it reminds me of is when we were talking about just the other day, the Hebrew being the shadow letters from the fire
Mhm.
and these flame scripts. And there's certain other ones that kind of have these like, they kind of look like some of the Arabic writing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kind of has a flame, kind of shadowy, fiery look to it,
And well, Johan was just saying that it's like how the earth was formed, and that's exactly what that Hebrew alphabet, the Taurus field, is also another like a more, streamlined version of that.
Yeah.
More advanced version of that, I should say.
Energy field.
Mhm.
It almost reminds me of like a cave time or cave teaching, because they'd probably be in the dark teaching these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it happens on New Year, which is the darkest time of year when the sun doesn't come up at all, basically.
Have you heard about that one spot where the cave paintings are, where the animals are actually, they say they're done almost more advanced than like modern day painting, because they're done like able to paint the animals on the curves of the cave and create depth and like these other techniques that weren't seen in art until like thousands and thousands of years later.
Is that where
Yeah,
they walk through the
Lascaux.
flame and the dance?
Pardon?
Glasgow has such technique, yeah.
I think there's some in Brazil as well. When you walk through with a torch, it doesn't work with a light, but when you walk through with a flaming torch, they dance or they move.
Well, that's up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the Lascaux caves are the same, and it also, I heard that they're also constellation representations in the Lascaux caves, and they're estimated to be 17,000 years old. But I've heard as old as 40,000.
Yeah, so what is the actual truth then? 40 million.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's super interesting though. Like in the caves, you're going underground. So like, and same thing with all the stuff they find all over the Americas that are, every time they dig a coal mine, they uncover something like super ancient, like 4 layers down, and there's nothing on that except for maybe the timelines we're working with in Bock Saga. No other explanation.
Anthropological evidence, like the Kogi, is Thor showed me this great documentary, but there's a person that would be chose from within this group or within this a tribe at birth, and they're immediately brought into a cave, never to see sunlight, or just enough light to not go blind. But they were taught the ways of their ancestors for so long, everything about the world, before they actually got to experience it. So when they come out of the cave for their rebirth, they have a totally different outlook on the world, because they've already imagined how the world works, and now they get to experience it afterwards. And I think that's just so cool. So something about the caves, teaching within the cave.
With the lack of light also allows the stimulation of the pineal gland, so you're able to actually see things that aren't there, that we can't pick up in our normal vision. So they're actually say that they're seeing the spirits of the earth, and they're communing with all of these spirits that we normal people can't see. So that's like one of the big values I see in that, is that they know things and see things that other people can't.
I think about that all the time. Like the amount of things that would be possible to see, but our eyes only see 3 colors. Whereas a butterfly sees in 5 colors. And then, have you guys heard of the mantis shrimp?
Mm-hmm.
So the mantis shrimp is like this. It grew up to like a foot long or maybe or something like that, but it's like really beautiful. It's also called the rainbow shrimp. And they found that this thing sees in 12 color spectrums.
Wow.
So whatever it's seeing is just so abstract to what we can perceive. you know, and it's the same thing in sound, and it's the same thing in well, that's light. Color is light, and then same thing in like sound, you know.
One time when I was on mushrooms, I saw music notes coming out of the speakers that were colored, and they were red and green music notes coming out of my friend's Volvo speakers as I was driving. He was driving me home.
I often think about that, the sound system, or when Eeyore talks about how it came into Frey's mind from Udin, from the sun, watching, you know. But there's a great quote. I'll have to pull it up, but the author says language is a virus from outer space, and he says try to sit quietly by yourself for X amount of time, and it won't happen, because you'll have this urge to make a sound or to create a sound. So I often think about that. What was it like before we had the sound? What were the physiological changes that went through us when we got the sound? And what are the changes we have now from the different sounds that we hear all the time compared to what they had just in the Saga time or Paradise time?
Yeah, I think, you know, what is interesting about the Bock Saga is a lot of these things that are repeated, we repeat them. And so it's like, oh, a sound system. We're just talking about, you know, the alphabet. But in a lot of the different things, like there's something to the sound system, and also the marks that we're using, like the you know, that all of them would repeat. Oh, the A is 3 poles, and the B is two half rings and 1 pole, and you know, there's something deeper there. And then the sound system, like maybe there's this certain frequency each sound is supposed to make, and there's also importance in the actual vowel sounds, that you can say it for any extended amount of time, you know, ooh, you know, and where's that right tone, and then, you know, these connecting tones, there's something that is natural about it, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I often think about that as well. There's a fantasy book series that I read when I was young, the Inheritance series. It's like Aragon's. It's about dragons and things. And it was written by like a 15-year-old who said that he just woke up and had this idea. But the main premise behind the magic within the books is that you can only learn the magic if you know the word for the specific thing. So to be able to control fire, for instance, you have to know the word and how to pronounce it properly. But once you do, you have control over it. You can bring it up whenever you need it, which I thought was really interesting. It always brings me back to Bock Saga as well.
Yeah.
There's specific word or sound or tone for everything.
Well, there's an interesting word called salamander, which is the name of the spirit of the fire, the element of fire, which is always kind of tripped me out.
Sala is secret, and man, the secret man there.
There.
Beacons.
Right there.
Right there. From the flames rise
right
the secret man. Salamander.
Yeah, there's also microbes that can live in lava, which I always would strip me out too. I'm like, there's something that's living inside of hot lava.
And it needs it to be able to survive.
And we already talked about lichen earlier being lava.
Yeah.
I just heard some volcano, I forget where it is, but it's spewing out gold.
Oh, yeah, I saw that article too.
You saw that?
Monatomic gold, yeah, in Antarctica.
I mean, I think there's monoatomic gold in the air all the time, personally, amongst other monoatomic substances.
Well, the kind of what the actual claim in Bock Saga is been unspoken, but that the real golden age is that just as we have stones and laying around everywhere, gold was as abundant as any regular. It was normal to have like a big block of gold everywhere. The whole planet was covered in it, and they didn't know what else to do with it. So just like the rocks stay for billions of years, same with the gold, it is made there to look beautiful as the aesthetique. So, and then was consolidated. So if that was true, that is what is inside the storehouse.
So back to the Kogi, the people that would train the youth in the cave, and then they would become these seers. They had a tradition of making these beautiful gold handicrafts, and I don't remember if they've always did it or not, but they would bury them in the ground rather than put them on display or anything. And so when all these grave robbers were coming and thinking they're robbing these graves, they were actually taking these golden statues out of the ground, which were offerings to the different deities and different energies of the earth, because they knew how to see the different energy ley lines. So they were literally using gold to make offerings back to the earth and to these ley lines. Because yeah, you got to watch the documentary, because they're tapped in, like they know about stuff. It's called The Elder Brothers Warning, and it's quite old now. And yeah, they've said some things like, we don't have much time left to get our shit together, or it's not going to be good for the earth. And they say that they're the older brothers and everyone else is the younger brother. And they said that they survived a cataclysm that was over 10,000 years old, and the lineage that they practice, going into the cave and creating these ultra telepathic seer people. After the cataclysm, they said that there was only, I think, 2 or 3 other places in the earth that was still doing this tradition, and they could meet up with them in these other realms. And then slowly they became the only one left that still was able to do this practice. It's just, they still do it today.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about it, Thor, that in the saga, a lot of the point was bring the yolk of the egg back into the earth. And we're connecting that to the Kogi. And I don't remember if we were talking about this, but when the Spanish, for instance, found some storehouses in, I think, Peru or Bolivia, they immediately overnight became like 10 times more wealthy, the Spanish Empire, because they just found these massive storehouses of gold. But what's also interesting is there was natural disasters that happened after they started to bring out the gold. So I think we were talking about it. What is the purpose of bringing the yolk back in the earth, to make the earth at homeostasis again?
So
No, I think for the Kogi, I don't know. I was just saying from the Bock Saga perspective, to bring in the metal would be kind of in line of why we have our language and sounds in the first place, is to be able to show appreciation. And so in that same respect, they're using gold to show that appreciation in the same way that the sounds are natural and, forever. Same thing with the gold, is how I see it. Maybe.
Gold all-time high recently.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Getting those junior mining stocks right now, that's going to be great. Not giving you financial advice.
Like in China, they have also this place where they had this old city, and then in the bottom of the city they find was it maybe a hippo or a rhinoceros or something, which was like left by the old people, and say that you should not take away that or they start flooding. And then they took away it, and then they started flooding. So like there is also reason of this saying that you have some object which has some spiritual connection, and then you place it somewhere and it has a certain effect on everything. That you can use many kind of symbolism to do, maybe.
I got this book called Particle Personalities, and it's written from the guy, he's channeling a particle of gold. And he's telling the story as if he's the gold. And I read it like 15 years ago. It was pretty trippy. I just remembered.
So now you can go and get connected with the tree and start to tell the tree's life then in the same way. Perhaps.
I was just thinking about how there's this idea of like everyone and everything experiences time differently, but it always ends up in the same place at the same time. So like time doesn't really exist. It's more of like, there's a good old like TED talk about it actually, where the someone's just like taking a light and moving it up and down. And so if you're staring at it, all you see is up and down. But if you're like in a car and then you're sitting on the sidewalk and then you watch this, it's actually going, but it's going the same distance, a different distance to you in the same time frame than it is. So we're traveling through time at different speeds. And so it would be like the same thing in the nature, so you have trees that can live thousands of years, but it's just kind of interesting in that perspective also, that this thing we call time is just purely of our own, that probably is what consciousness is our ability to jump back and tell the story of 400 million years ago, or jump forward and tell a story of 1,000 years ago, or just 10 minutes ago. But it is only in our mind's window that we can do that kind of thing, and travel back in time or into the future.
Yeah, it's like Odin has always been and Odin will always be, so there is basically no time there. It just is.
Yes.
I like time is art.
Yeah.
Time doesn't exist, only clocks do. Another one.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. Like, what are we actually seeing? We're like, we see less than 1% of everything there is to see. We can only see that, so, but we can, it is in the sound system that we're able to construct what we're actually seeing, or our life experience or whatever.
It's interesting we're talking about that. And back to the women with the mathematik and the creation of the perception of time, right? But maybe post-paradise and during the ice time, I'm not sure if you've read Michael Tsarion, but like female Illuminati, essentially, where women may have been in a position of power because they knew the mystery of childbirth, but they could have also been in a position of power because of the mystery of timekeeping. This is something that maybe men didn't even realize, or during paradise time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
and this is the whole point.
Who takes care of the yearly period time in Almanacca. Like it's a women thing to keep control of time in this sense.
And the importance of astrology.
Yeah.
Almost like the women's cycle, usually if it's on point, is pretty regular, and then that would be a way to time something, with the moon, all that jazz.
And when Sienare does the thing with the crystal balls and putting the hairs on top and lighting the whole ceiling, that has also it's just this one specific time of the day to be able to measure the name and this connection to the children.
The horoscope.
Yeah.
Oh man, the women's side is so interesting. It's just so fascinating, the mystery of it.
Yeah.
I think we're still waiting for these women to tell us some more, right?
But this is also something that raises up in the cultures itself. Like when we have this nature culture raising up, among that there comes this plant culture in also. So maybe it's just an knowledge that is within us, which has possibility to come out as long as there is enough study of it.
Well, I'm thinking that when the women are talking about all that, the men won't get it, and I don't think we were ever meant to. I don't think we're even physiologically capable of truly understanding what their role is. So even when we speak about it, it's going to be like mansplaining. You know, and Eeyore actually had a good example in one of his recordings where he said a joke that only the women even understood what was funny about it. And he did it in front of a group of like 50-50 women and men, and the men were like, didn't laugh because they didn't get it. And he said, this is a joke my mother told me for women. And they were all like, oh, that's so funny. You know, and it was, I didn't get it either.
That's kind of when there is in Saga, when you have the old type of home, when you have the men's side and the women's side, and then you have the common ground that men don't have anything to do on the women's side, but the women can come to the men's side. So we don't understand what happens here.
The mystery. It's so mysterious over there.
Yeah.
And they kept this. They kept it separate, even to the basic things of the animals, like the domesticated animals they were responsible for. There's the men's side animals and the women's side animals, you know, must have applied to nearly everything, but also very similar, also very much the same. You know, poles and holes. Yeah, and there was one good one. I was actually just listening to it recently. Once Ananto brought it up on a recent stream, but that you go in, and it comes blacker and blacker, or you know, darker, darker, darker black. And for the man side, it goes lighter, 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 lighter white. So on the women's side, it's darker, darker. You're going in the tube, you know, and we both have a tube. The tube goes darker, darker, darker black, and then the man's lighter, 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 lighter white.
This reminds me of one thing that I heard about the Koji people, or I understand that it came from that culture, that when men are the creator, women are the caretaker. When we have the sun, which is the creating force, and then we have this dark universe. So the further you go into the universe, the darker it gets. And the further you get closer to the sun, the lighter it gets. And the point of this is that men should learn how to become women, and women should learn how to be men. And then we find a kind of a balance. And then we become all light. Like our heavy life goes away when we understand the other part.
That is interesting. I don't know if I agree with it.
No, I just say that it's just one story that I heard from that understand to come from that group.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Interesting
what
to try to
makes
be
me
able to
think-
explore.
It makes me think of almost a post-paradise time mindset when it's explained that way, because I see it in other cultures as well. For instance, like I bring back the ancient Greeks, but the men didn't have history until they received the oistros, which is historia, which means history, you know. So they'd need the women to get there, but the man wouldn't have a place without the woman, essentially.
This is the same in Bock Saga.
History and mystery.
History and mystery.
Yeah, but it would be the same thing when you're talking. They would form the stories. The Hexor and would speak with Ukko, and so they would create the stories together, right? Johan,
They would listen to Ukko, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
The Hexor, or the Ukko's daughter, that has to do with Väinämöinen's story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Väinämöinen is when Ukko is on Vinö, he is the Vinö-mannen, and in Finnish is then the Väinämöinen. The Vinö. There's Vinö, which is the Wine Islands, and then Mö is a daughter of Ukko, a virgin, and then Inen is then the person. So these Mö daughters make stories of Ukko, and that becomes then the Vinö man stories.
What is that? The Mew? How do you say it, or how do you spell it?
Which one?
The Mew daughter?
Mö, M and Ö with dots. That's an daughter, a virgin daughter.
Mhm.
Me.
Makes me
Better
think of
say.
muse almost. Muse, muse in Greek, which is
Ah,
not
yeah, because the me are the muses.
Mhm. There we go. And then those are sacrosanct
Yeah.
virgins. You couldn't touch
Yeah.
them, and they
Yeah.
are the ones that sing in the reality, sing in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Yes. This is what more people need to hear, the connections to everything, because we make them all the time in Bock Saga. It's like everything you hear is like, oh, there's something there, but it's hard to consolidate all that information, and share it,
Well, what's interesting to me, that's why I like to look at these common threads, is if you really delve deep into the mystery cults, they're all Bacchanalian, they're all Saturnian. And what you see in the lens of maybe the Catholic Church or the Christian lens, Christian lens, is that it's evil, it's devil-like, like a Satan. But what they saw back then was a more Bach-like figure, a Pan-like figure, a satyr. Right? It wasn't
Yes.
evil. It was bringing joy, bringing love, bringing babies. Bringing the next generation in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and connects to Dionysus also.
That's Bach. Yeah, Bach.
Yeah,
Bacchanalian is Dionysus.
Bacchus.
I understand that
The same
Dionysus
as
is.
Aphrodite. So Aphrodite, for instance, the earliest depictions of the female Aphrodite had a penis.
Isn't Bacchus the wine god?
Yeah, Bacchus is the wine god. Bacchanalian.
I learned that at Mardi Gras.
The vine god. The vine.
So that's really interesting. I don't know if you know, Johan, maybe the names of the daughters, the other daughters besides the Muir.
They basically doesn't have direct names. It's just Maya has the Maya Ilmatar, or the Mai. That's a title name always. And the other ones are then basically the Hexa, or then they are the Me, and like they don't have any specific single name.
Got it.
Yeah.
Or
They
was
work
it at least
together.
recorded back?
Okay.
Say, I'm wondering if it was lost information. Maybe they had a designation that we just don't know because maybe it wasn't as important for them to keep in the story. But maybe
I wouldn't necessarily think so, because the main point is that they are hexa, and the hexa makes the hexagram, so there are 6 persons. There is kind of no meaning, because when on the main side you have the 10 men, so the first of them is the secretary, the 10th of them is the casseur, and they in between are the suppleants. So either the suppleants don't either have meaning, and there are 8 of them. So yeah, maybe there is some deeper meaning of each single one of them having some specific duty, but that's not at least told in the Bock Saga.
That's what I was getting to. Maybe they had a specific duty that we've lost the meaning to,
yeah, maybe.
But it could have carried on in these other cultures, and that's why you see these slight differences. Because I always think back, if Ragnarok #1 happened, it'd been devastating, and not everyone would have survived. It would have been you may have been lucky to have just a few pockets of people surviving in other places.
Yeah. But there is also because these daughters, these 6, 7 daughters represent the Pleiades. So in the name of these stars can be also hidden some meaning.
There's also how Ursa Minor or Major also has 7 stars.
Yes, yeah. You see that in the Tao tradition. So that's what I was just about to say. Is you see the Pleiadian tradition in some of the southern European places as well, but in the East and in North America, you see the Big Dipper tradition. Those 7 stars are representative.
Yeah,
but one
it also
goes
makes
one way and the other one goes the other way.
I was just going to say that the swastikas, L's, a series of L's, and then it's Lucia. I don't know.
Light coming from hell.
Yes.
Hell. Yeah, but when in Saga, this one swastika is the for Lemminkäinen and the breeding system, and the other one is from Ilmarinen and the information system. So if we see around the world the two different ones, they are just maybe connections to different meaning of the system.
There we go. Maybe a loss in translation, or we lost a portion of it and we only kept a portion as a mythology.
I think
Like
it makes more
maybe
sense.
this tropical kingdom chooses which culture, which mythology they want to keep, and that's when it becomes a bit separated.
Mm-hmm.
And so long ago, they separated so long ago, you know, and so you know, a big thing is people want to smash the Bock Saga into everything. Also, oh, you guys are trying to explain everything, but we do have separate mythologies from 10 different tropical kingdoms that would have, you know, separated long ago and had some reconnection. But I feel like during that whole time, they were peaceful with each other, most likely, and were trading. And these are some of the kinds of things that we find, like in you know, Longo's videos with the big stone anchors, right? These could have been from the tropical kingdoms, because I've found just the same size, if not bigger, stones, just like the ones in Florida, in Asia, in Malaysia, and different things. And so that's not the only place, and that's a different ocean, you know. So I think these were major, these civilizations were interacting with each other, but understood their own race, their own share of the rock, you know, that they preserved in their own way, you know, and created their language and a new sound system specifically to hold the knowledge of their creation, you know. So using this idea of a sound system in different ways to construct different alphabets and sounds and languages and words are all different unique ways of describing different things that are also important, you know, especially with this big change of the tilt or something like that after this first Ragnarok.
And then you have
oh, go ahead.
I would say, and you have to layer on top of that the goddess tribes afterwards coming in and trying to rewrite over a lot of the 10 tropical kingdom history or mythologies.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm a big proponent of like Harumo's and multiple other authors of Troy in the North, Troy in England, for instance. And those are goddess tribes, but that's Greek language that we get from that. But from Greek language, you can almost perfectly translate it back to Finnish, to Von language, if you know how to look at it. And there's multiple researchers that did this in the 60s and 70s that were looking at the Iliad and the Odyssey and finding the commonalities from the names to Finnish words and what they would mean in Finnish, which is amazing to me. But you have those tribes going out into the world and wanting to be kings. And we learned that from Sven and Dan, but how many others wanted to be kings and found these other tribes or races and said, you know, we're taking over. We have the knowledge from the Oss. We're here to, you know, take over essentially.
Yeah, that's part of the saga, is that you know, like say the Romans saw what Sven and Dan did and duplicated it.
Mm-hmm.
Duplicated the idea. Now you have East-West kind of thing, empires branching off because of the idea of Sven and Dan.
I think we lose a lot of that maybe in what we call the New World with North and South America. How much of that was overwritten?
Probably quite much.
Yeah, that's
how
so
much
much
of
more
it was
recent.
not even written.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Right.
And the main issue is actually losing their actual language. Whereas we can dig into ancient Chinese by using their language or their marks, you know, their hieroglyphs, their specific characters. And the same thing in Hindi.
Chinese is also one of those cultures which has been the last one to be taken over by this imperialist system.
Hmm. Yeah, but in Mexico, no one speaks Mayan anymore. They all speak Spanish.
Yeah,
Or
but that's
Nahua.
500 years of destruction.
Yeah,
Imagine thousands. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Chinese interaction is like hundreds less than that before it really got.
A lot of tones in Chinese. Like you got to have the tone right to make the sound. Otherwise, it's a completely other meaning.
Yeah,
So that's back to the sound system.
very much.
Yeah, I learned a little bit when I went to Taiwan. Like, how do you buy that thing? Boyao ma nika tong shi.
Nah, watch your mouth.
It's with a K. It's with a K.
Yeah, and the K and the X and the Q, how close they are to each other also.
And
Not only the vocals, but also the consonants.
Usu Laoban. I'm a boss.
I was just thinking-
Learn how Chong Wen.
I was just thinking about how if these different cultures were training during ice time, you know, explaining the big stones, anchors and stuff, but also the whole southern part of the United States also has all kinds of evidence of major changes to the land, you know, the canals and everything that are you're nodding your head. You could probably elaborate better than me.
I'm in my place in Houston right now, and I'm from California originally, but I have a place in Houston. We're here right now. When we go to the beach, we go camping there. There's an intercoastal that runs all the way around the Gulf of Mexico, and Narco talks about it quite a bit. It goes all the way around Florida and up the East Coast, and it was all man-made. All man-made, terraformed. Florida itself is terraformed. It's a garden that was flattened to the point that mountains were removed to bring up the the spring water, essentially. You know, so there was a lot of work going on in this neck of the woods, essentially.
Yeah, and to imagine that wasn't just happening everywhere is kind of ridiculous.
Down in the Inca Empire too, they say that the modern day Peruvians say that they didn't build it; it was already there when they got there, and you know that's just one location where people say that, you know, like, but that was already here.
What that makes me think about, especially when you get those cultures to say that was there, is that was maybe a different tropical kingdom moved in on another one, or the remnants of one moved in on another one that was completely wiped out.
I mean,
and then there can be a separation of the tropical kingdoms after the second Ragnarok also. But they weren't maybe united anymore, but they split.
And we lose the names of places. So I see a lot of copy and paste from the north all over the world in geography and names of places based on river basins and things. But I've come across that France, northwestern France, was most likely the original Egypt. And you still see it in a lot of the names of the village that end in NIL, Nile. And if you can look at it here on maps and you hear about Saga, they move people into the south, into what we know of Egypt now, because there's no one there. They'd all moved north. So they were constantly looking for places to grow ringlands, essentially, kingdoms.
Wasn't there something about the word aura being the original name of the Nile River recently in the chat?
I saw something about that. The Aura, you meaning like the original Nile in Egypt was called Aura or something along those lines.
And then there was also a river maybe in Finland called the Aura River. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, is the copy and pasting. So if the Nile was in France and ran into Paris, and those people ran out or overtaken by the Romans, they just copy and pasted the names down south, whoever moved there.
It's like the Amazon being a word from the north, and now it's
Exactly.
the largest forest or whatever rainforest. But I've even heard people say that that's a garden that was planted purposely at some point.
I have a few books in Spanish from conquistadors that are saying that the Amazon was not even there. It was a vast farmland 600 years ago. And now we have
Wow.
the largest jungle in the world. So there was no jungle there, as far as I can tell from some of these old books that I've read and these old
That would-
accounts, these old diaries.
That
And
would
now it's the
make
most
sense.
overgrown jungle in the world.
That would actually make sense because of all this stuff they keep finding now using LiDAR.
Uh-huh.
I just saw like a separate video on there was an island off the coast of Ireland called Brazil.
Yeah, to the east or to the west of Ireland.
And then when you're talking about how there's these names that seem like copy and paste, like obviously like Peru, you know, and now you have Brazil, Peru. I mean, it's like eventually it's beyond coincidence. I just booked a campsite for a month later, and I'm to Lake Peru. You know, it's like right by my house. And
Yeah, copy and pasted.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Brazil, the Brasil Silva, which is my last name, is one of the like 10 most common names in the world. There's like millions and millions of Silvas in the world, and it's got linked right there to the Sil. You know, Sylvan. It's like means the woods, forest, tree. Right back to the Yggdrasil.
Right back to the cell, which is made of salts, which is soul.
And bra is like good or well. So it's a good seal.
That's a good first.
Bra seal.
You know, there's one of the tribes from Peru. It's known for ayahuasca shamanism. Is called the Shipibo, Shipibo. And what was I gonna say? They have these songs that they sing called the Icaros, which are the song is the medicine, and they sing you the song during the ayahuasca ceremony, and they're transferring the vibration through the plant that is telling them how this person needs to be healed, and they sing that song vibration into the person, and that's how they get healed.
Mystery medicine.
And I was watching a video about a Sami woman, and she was talking about the yoke, which is a similar style of singing or chanting. And as she was singing, I was literally thinking, wow, this sounds a lot like the Icaros from the Shipibo. And then she literally said within 10 minutes of this, oh yeah, when I first went to South America and sat with the Shipibo, we noticed how similar our songs were. And I was like, oh man, there it is. Like, you know,
Wow.
It's right there. So.
But this comes to a very interesting question, because like, I wonder who were the after second Ragnarok who come to America. We have the tropical kingdoms, but then we have the North Americans. And if the North Americans, or was it South Americans, is mixed then with the Sami come to Tibet.
The
Like
Phoenicians.
how is the Tibetan mix with the South or North American?
Phoenicians, I think, and that's where I think Hormuz and some.
Go ahead.
I think that's where this Troy in the north is so important, because if Troy was in England and the diaspora of these northern people after the fall of these large trading cities fell, where did they go? They went east or west, and they went south. So they went to the Americas using the Gulf Stream, and they went south. And that's why you get chiroglyphics, where you can translate the hieroglyphics using Welsh, the Egyptian, for instance. But you can do the same thing in Mexico. And you have Ogam
like
throughout.
All the gods would have from England would have also gone to America.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think they had most likely lines of communication open, and we see that with trade, especially with trade of metals. Sure. So you have copper coming from the Michigan basins, and you have tin, and you have stone coming from the south of the United States, and those are going to Europe. And then after the fall of Troy, historically, a lot of that trade stops. It freezes.
Same thing with tobacco and marijuana and coca in Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, many of these mummies had cocaine in them, in their digestive tracts. But how also did sativa get to the New World? Supposedly marijuana is from the Hindu Kush. Why are they finding wild strands with no near genetic relativity to those Hindu Kush plants in Mexico, in South America? Why do they find corn in Indian art? You know?
Worldwide trade network.
Mm-hmm. Very, very wide trade networks.
Why do they call it maize?
Yeah.
There's a song from South America that I learned, and it's, I don't know what it all translates to, but it's about huiracocha, and it also talks about hampu, which would that be hemp?
And finish.
Yes.
So yeah, the song, it's from South America. It's about this character, Huiracocha, who some say we know was a white guy, for lack of a better term, and they're singing about hemp.
In Finnish. If it's hampo.
It's a song about the condor. I don't know what it all means, but it's my favorite song that I know.
It's interesting. It's about a condor, because a condor is also representative in the Greek as Zeus's eagle, the one that eats Prometheus's liver. But that's also a very feminine mystery cult symbolism. So this is, again, the women. And I've always thought that the women may have been in charge almost of these shipping networks, because of the search for a spawn. So if you're protecting and bringing up the most beautiful woman in the world, you're going to need shipping networks to bring these people, in addition to bringing out all the Robbies and all the tour friends, you know. So who's in charge of the shipping networks? Was it the women? Is that why we get a lot of these? Caravan.
Yeah. The caravan
we
system
get
is the moving system. But then
So the
again, that's
mystery
the
was
moving
humans.
system. We have the logistical parts which are controlling it. And again, maybe that's the woman. I don't know.
I've always thought about that because it's the mystery, and I don't know. I just thought about that a lot.
Look.
Log that data.
Yes.
I like the chickens in the background sometimes.
I was just thinking, is this super loud right now? I was gonna close the window.
No, it's perfect background.
At one point, one of them jumped up and knocked my window. I was like, "What are you doing?" Because I got some little plants, little trees right there. I was like, "You better not knock those trees down, or I'm about to come out there."
It reminds me of the old Jim Chesner recording on his show. What's his name?
You're talking about the game.
Yeah, he had like the roosters going on, and he's like, "Hey, quiet down," and then it stopped, and he's like, "Whoa!" It listened to you. He's like, "Yeah."
So if I have my front door open and I'm sitting here, I can hear them walk in my front door, and I just go, "No, no, no," and they run off. It's crazy. I got them trained.
Good.
Let me try to get Dylan back in here. I think he dropped out.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I thought of earlier and then I forgot and then remembered is when we're talking about music and just like the chorus and the chorus and everyone coming together and creating this harmony. My first time I ever drank ayahuasca, I was just with like 4 other people, and we were in a geodesic dome off grid near literally bordering the Bohemian Grove, kid you not. And I remember just everyone was like really good musician and singer, and everyone that could play instruments. And one of the guys was playing didgeridoo while ringing chimes and playing a drum with his foot, and just I'm like, what's going on here? But I remember just looking up into the geodesic dome at the ceiling, and I could see all of the music that we were making coming together and swirling into these different colors and shapes and vibrations and creating this like beautiful geometry above us in the room. And I was just in awe, just like, wow, this is what we're creating right now. And like, I can't even see it, but I can see it because I'm like, anyway, it was beautiful.
I liked when you used the word chorus, because how do you say that, Johan? Chorus in root.
Chorus.
Kur. Sure. Chorus. Thinking.
I need to. It's cur only.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like cure.
Cure. But then when you write it's cur, but if you pronounce it chur, then it's to drive.
To drive.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then if you take cur and turn it around, it becomes rök, which is smoke.
Hmm. Or like in Ragnarok.
Ragnarök, yeah.
Hmm.
But in Ragnarök, it's the ök in the saga. The ök is the öken, which is the desert. Because you can pronounce Ragnarök in saga, you pronounce it Ragnarök. But in this Norse mythology, you say Ragnarök, which is raining smoke.
But that's the ring with 2 dots, right?
Yeah.
So that would be chorus backwards.
That's the rök. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Chorus backwards becomes smoke.
Well, I might have to blow some smoke rings to that one.
Yeah.
Babies. Yeah, sometimes when I don't feel well, I just intuitively start toning and humming and harmonizing, like, and like some shift takes place in my body. Sometimes I'll break down and start crying instantly, or I'll just burp out energy for like 10 minutes afterwards. But it's just, I don't even think about it. It just instantly, my body does it. And I can't even explain it, but it's like the power of the sound, the drum, the tone, the music.
It's chanting of sounds like if you continue it, you start to feel it in your head.
I wonder what all 29 sounds overlaid on top of each other would sound like.
Should we try just for fun? We record each sound separately and place them.
Or play them in a ring super fast, like, you know what I mean? At different speeds.
Chorus. Smoke backwards.
Then you got the corazon. That's the heart.
Mm.
And then Cori is also like rocks, right? But it also is an old word for hunting. I'm not exactly sure. I can't break it down fully, but it has to do with hunting and perhaps giving the dog the heart after the kill. Anyway, I forgot where I remember that from, but pretty trippy.
Quarry reminds me of query, which would be a question or a wondering.
Yes, in English it becomes a like word group. This chorus, everything kind of.
A group of birds is a chorus.
No, I'm like meaning the sound of the beginning. Like you have the Q, CHU and the QU and like this all. Like it sounds like some sound starting connection.
There's
Without taking words even consideration, just the beginning sound.
I heard something where they were using the sound of insects and birds in the morning, like when the sun's first rising, and you would say you're growing plants indoors away from that nature. If you play the sound when your lights are turning on in your your sprout garden that you have inside, that the plants actually grow better because they're hearing and this vibration of everything waking up with the birds chirping and these insects starting to move around, and it makes the plants happier. Pretty trippy.
Also plants, the cells in our eyeballs that see the light and produce the images that we see when we use our eyes, plants are filled with them, the photoreceptors, the same exact ones, the same cells and everything. So it's like they can see in all directions and everything like that. There's something to the plants for sure.
And then we have in our eyes,
That's
we have
part
rods.
of the plan.
We have rods and cones. And what tree has rods and cones would be a pine tree, right? And then we have our pineal gland. That's like, we get this light inside, and then somehow it's going in our brains, and the trip that is life.
Finish it's Kopjumainen.
The which?
Pineal.
Oh shit.
Pineal. Huh?
Kopjumainen. Kopjumainen.
Käpy. Käpy is the cone itself. And then the käpy, rauhanen. Rauhanen is the organ.
Käpynäinen.
Käpynäinen.
This is the pineal. Oh no! Oh, you're right. It's capuliseke. Don't make me do it.
Käpylisäke.
Okay. Capulisake.
Capulisake, yeah.
Capuli, like little, like Lee. You clean.
Lisa is like an addition.
Yeah, you saw the Lee. You add a little. An addition. Lee, sa.
People like to call it the third eye. I like to call it the first eye.
But like capu is the cone of the tree. And lisake is something that you add on. So it's kind of the word itself in this format, it says that you have a cone added on. Like it's an add-on to your system. Yeah, and then the capu has the P sound, which is in the pyramid also.
Right. Capu. Yeah, it's interesting. It's the same meaning when you break it down into more like root sounds. Li, da. Okay.
How do you spell it?
I'm not telling you. I put in pineal gland into the translator. It's Kapylisake, but all the A's are the A's with the dots above it. So like cat and cat. Pew.
Hey, chill.
But it's also this is interesting in Swedish for the pineal gland is bringing in the spine and talking, and it mentions Q, Thor, core. So in the middle of Kur, it's the same one. It's the rock sound again, except
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. But in
So
this, it's pronounced the churten.
Can you say the whole word?
Tal, got, churten.
So it's telling the sure, huh? Is that like
the
seven?
tal is the pine tree, the tall tree.
But it's also the spine.
Is the tall.
Yes, but also the spine is tall with like one L. Yeah?
Tal.
Oh.
Tal. The spine.
The spine, S pine, the pine tree, S pine,
Yeah.
the spine. And then
The
tall is the pine tree and the spine, right? No? Okay. Maybe
I don't
I'm
know.
wrong. Sorry. I'll shut up.
So some people call it a gland. I've also heard it called an organ, and it's like or it could be a muscle, and if you don't exercise it, it's going to become weaker and weaker and weaker. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, well, it's
It
connected
becomes
to the
calcified
pineal
if you.
gland.
What do you say, Dustin?
Oh, I said the pineal gland instead of the pineal. We also have the penis, you know.
Yeah. You got to kneel down to get that pie.
But I'm sorry
That's why,
for
like,
interrupting.
if we have the word, then like the tal is the pine tree, the kot is the cone, and then the churtel is the organ. The organ is then like churtel, so it's drive tail. So if we in this way split it up, it becomes like the pine cone drives tail.
Right.
And then,
And it's and speech is tall.
yeah, a tala is to speech, and a speech is a tal. But tal with the long is the tall, which is the pine, but tal is the short. Slight difference. But...
So it should have something to do with talking.
Yeah, it's the cone which drives your speech.
Right. You know, and in the story, the saga story, it is connecting the asana, you know, is connecting the two.
Yeah.
So we get our speech by.
And then in the saga, they say the third eye is in the head below.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is also a tree, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we have two heads, or we have several heads in this case. But...
Better than one.
The one cooking it up is the chef, which is also the same stem word as chief.
Chief, yeah.
Chief, chef.
Yeah, chef. The chef and the chef.
Mm-hmm.
The chef is the chef. The chef is the chef.
Is there a link between chief and Shiva?
Well, the man who is presenting the Shiva in Saga becomes Lemminkäinen and Ukko is the chief, the head man of everybody. Because he's the pää Ra, so he's the pää is the head and the Ra. So it's the head Ra, which becomes the chieftain. But in Saga, basically the chieftain is from the Gothic tribes when they leave after Gotland time. The leader of those becomes the chieftain in the Gothic tribes ringlands, which is equivalent to the Rabbi, which is the governor of the ringlands in the normal system.
And Shiva also means like a share or a sickle.
Yeah, like you can have a cake and then you can cut a Shiva from the cake also.
So like a
But
moon
the Shiva in
would
itself, when it's a disc, it's the whole disc.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think someone was chatting about it, and I participated. It was like, the Shiva is a big Hindi name, big Hindi thing. But in Saga, it'd be like the moon Shiva would represent the man on the moon. So like you have his beard and his forehead, and it looks like a crescent moon, the sickle.
Yeah.
The shickle, the Shiva, I don't know, whatever, something like that. And so it's representing the king, but then in Hindi they will have earrings for Shiva earrings, and these earrings are like loops, but they have the crescent on the bottom of the earring on the women. And but if you're standing on the equator looking at the moon, the crescent is on the bottom, versus where in the north it comes from the side. Kind of interesting.
There's I think in India where you wear a lot of gold necklaces that are made of little chain links, little rings, and then you're wearing your money on you, and say you go to the market and you want to buy something, you just take your necklace apart and you take one of the little rings off and you trade that for the day of what you need at the market. I forgot where I heard that, but
yeah,
that kind of sounds like this old money system.
Yeah, like, same thing. And I saw a thing where it's, what's his name? Morgan Freeman. He wears like earrings that are worth as much as a coffin would cost, or something like that. So in case he dies somewhere, so whoever finds him can bury him properly.
That's the same as the Spaniards and the pirates would do as well. They'd wear as much as they had to be buried.
Yeah,
in the Southwest, in like the Navajo, they wear a lot of turquoise and stuff. But then when the silversmithing came in and all these silver coins from the US that were minted, they would take those coins and make them into beads by hammering them and making them into these kind of like little discs. And then they would put the coins together and they would wear the currency as necklaces. I always thought that was interesting.
I like that so much more than paying with my phone.
But that's kind of the necklace thing, is kind of the saga thing. Like when you have your tour friend, and then for the tour friend, you need to find your stone, which you give to them. And then you have the necklace where you collect your tour friends from your lifetime. And that's your wealth of showing that I have this many people to share my things with personally.
There's I don't know what it's called, but in Scandinavia, there's a thing that kind of like clips on to your shirt or your hood, and it comes down across the chest, and it has all these different little beads and charms. You know what I'm talking about?
Not in detail. In picture mind, I get it, but
I'll send a picture of it later. But I see like people, I don't know how old the tradition is, but I was thinking that it dated back to the saga, because you're wearing these little beads, and it's kind of like, check me out. I got this on me right here.
Yeah.
Regalia.
Even all the ring stuff, a lot of like modern new age kind of, or rediscovering old astrology stuff, link this Saturnian lore to why we use hoop earrings and rings and wear wedding rings. It's kind of this old Saturn worship, which continues to go back to, like you said earlier, Dylan, the Satyr, which is the half goat, half man, the pawn, and that's pretty interesting too. Like that, these rings are coming from this culture that is very Saturnian, or very Capricornian,
Mm-hmm.
Demonized now.
unfortunately.
Demon eyes.
Remember
The
ring
demon
around
moon. The
ring
moon.
around the rosy.
Pockets full of. Pose for me. I mean, posies.
What's another word for pocket? It's like a bag or a sack.
A purse. A pursy. A pursy.
You said it, not me.
It's ficka in Swedish, or root it's ficka. And Finnish becomes tasku.
Cool.
Culpa.
Tasku.
Ashes to ashes. We all fall down.
Maya culpa.
A ficka, fic is like the past form of getting. Your ficka is when you have picked something or you got something. Like the place where you place something that you got.
I would say fickle is like means like fake or untruthful. Fickle.
Fickle.
Or weak. You guys know that word? Fickle?
Fickle.
Yeah.
Not confident. Fickle would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say kind of like weak or like, I don't know.
Showing weakness, I think, more than being weak.
Not
Yeah.
confident.
Unstable. Changeable. Constant.
Oh yeah, there's I wanted to say this like 3 or 4 podcasts ago. We were talking about like religion to religion, right? But there's another definition that from the Latin religare, to tie or bind or thwart from forward progress, which also, makes sense.
Like relegate. Mm.
Yeah, have you ever checked out Mark Passio?
Mm-mm.
No. He's got a lot of interesting etymology stuff, and he's all about natural law and stuff like that. I used to check him out a while ago, but not so much lately. But
I think I may have actually have heard him, and I don't know if it's the same guy, but it was a guy really going into words and natural law, and kind of talking about the differences between this male and female energy, where like the female side. This must be the same guy because it was a really long lecture, and I listened to the whole freaking thing in like one day.
is it like the
It was like
occult?
7 to 10 hours.
Yeah. He's got lectures that are that long. Yep.
And
Got like a ponytail, kind of like pulled back hair, dark hair ponytail.
I'm a pure listener. I don't even know what his face would look like if I saw it again.
Fair enough.
And so he was talking. There's several things that are really good points that he was bringing up. And in fact, I think it was Michelle who shared the video with me in the first place. So and he was talking about where the female energy, this feminine energy, is kind of like this libertarian principle, non-aggression principle, where you don't hurt people and you don't take their stuff. And then, but the male energy is more exerting force, but for good, or for nature, or for gratitude, or a good kind of force. Whereas we think of like when someone's exerting their force as forcing someone else to do something, which would violate the other principle. So then in that way, that men are supposed to continue to provide value, right? And the women basically make sure everyone gets along, and no one's like violated their natural rights, right? Or their natural rights aren't violated. And then he also was using the word on, an, the prefix or suffix an, as being on. So like, and so you get words like anarchy, anarchy. So you're on the arc key, you know, it's the key to the arc, you know, and on is more of like not on top of, but like turned on, you know, turned on, whether it's sexually or you turn the lights on, the light bulb, the lights are on, you know, you're in all those meanings is what it is on. That's what I could kind of recall from him. I think it's probably the same guy.
Yeah, he's worth checking out. Like, he gets a little intense and he's very opinionated, but
yeah,
he's all about, you know, the sacred anger. Like, you're just gonna like look at something happen, or you're gonna like step up and not allow evil to happen. You know what I mean?
is your life force turned on? We think about that a lot in Buddhism too, you know, like this concept of like the 10 worlds, and our state of being is always inside one of them or several of them, and there's a positive and negative aspect to each one. So like even tranquility is like one of the 10 worlds, but if you're using the negative side of the tranquility is doing nothing and taking no action at all, you know, or being not even aware of things going on that, you know, you can do something about. Or even anger, right? You would think of it as a negative, but you can be angry about injustice, you know, or something like that, and it drives you to do something.
It's a lot depends on how you use the forces of everything.
Mm.
Like the same also how they use the words or the sounds. It's all like connected also to the uses of aggression or tranquility, because you can either shout or you can stay silent.
Yeah, I feel like that's also part of the story, because when we look into the sound system and some of our words, you know, the word will mean something completely different if it's used as a noun, a verb, or an adjective. And so, but these concepts of a noun, a verb, and an adjective weren't really built into the root language in the first place. But what Bock Saga talks about is the 8 powers. And so it's possible that like the 8 powers are like an overlay you can put on each individual word, and what each power you're applying to it is how you use that word in the circumstance.
That's something worth looking into maybe deeper also.
Yeah, we'll work on that. I don't know if you guys know, but we're working on like this epic. I don't know if we'll ever finish, but we're going letter by letter, and going into each, like starting at the first letter E or I, and going I-A, and looking at all words that have I-A, and then going to I-B, and looking at all the words in both Finnish, root, and English. And we're doing it, and I don't know, we've already done a couple. We're not even halfway through but already have like two 3-hour sessions. It's insane, and we only have time like once a week to do it.
And then you have to go backwards.
Right. I mean, we're doing I, and then we haven't even gotten to the second meaning of E. So we're just doing like the polar, you know, axis kind of representation, or inside, but be fun.
Alphabet aerobics.
Children are healthy when they play.
What's that?
What was that?
Children are healthy when they play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what mine are up to. My wife's not here. They're pretty quiet right now. They have permission to do anything they want.
It's nap time over here, so we're good.
Nice.
Yeah, but we adults also have an inner child in us.
Mm-hmm.
And as an adult, you can be playful like a child also.
Yeah.
I love to play.
I'm gonna build my life around that.
Yeah, man. The game of life.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Good stuff.
Very nice.
Yeah, man. Language. There was a quote one time. It was like, using language to talk about language evolves language. Forgot where I heard it, but it always stuck.
Yeah.
I always thought my mom's puns were so lame.
Maybe that's because you don't understand when they're female.
Yeah, that's true. And then, but now I have like completely new appreciation for all of them.
Pretty much thinking puns, and it's whether or not I'm going to say it out loud or not is questionable.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Puns. There's a reason there's a pun and so close to fun. Veet. Oh, wit. Oh, in root it would be wit. Veet.
It.
I was thinking about
Pizza.
to be a witness
Mm.
the other day.
Mm.
My bearing witness, actually.
Mm. Yeah, there's this whole new language, this astrology language that's been put into English, and it's interesting taking even those words and bringing them back to root because it's not built into root that way, and but it does like provide insight on more of the origins of a lot of our astrology or astrotheology and kind of words and meanings, as the word astrology is a root word in of itself, the astrology.
What are some examples of that? What do you mean by that? That they don't go back into the root. I mean,
so like maybe say earlier, we brought ram, right? Whereas the animal is also like it's a kind of a type of goat, but in the Bock Saga it would have been one of the domesticated animals that came as Uden things after ice time, right? So and so when we're creating or generating or some natural name for them, it's kind of after what they do. So like in root, like a ram would be, I think, feels more like the actual action of ramming.
How much RAM do you have in your hard drive?
Yeah.
Random access memory, right? RAM.
Mm-hmm. But Ramza is rhyme, right?
Yeah. And then it's Ram and Sa. Sa is to say.
Right.
So Ram said.
Yeah. So how do you break rhyme down even smaller than what it is, right? And you're saying what? What are you saying? The Ram? That is rhyme. So, so what is Ram meaning when you're already talking about the saying part? What's the Ram? It's putting in. It's putting in the Ra, and the M is Monet or M, but it's giving an aspect to Ra.
But actually also this Ram is a frame.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ram backwards is Mar, which is the dark side of the moon.
Right, which is Ra.
Just about to say it seems feminine, so putting into the feminine.
Yeah, it's turned into feminine. Yeah, the Ram.
Sounds like a nightmare.
And the ram puts into the.
Yeah, but and then to further elaborate on the astrology part is, I like to take more of the astrotheology aspects of astrology as kind of the oldest and deepest meaning encoded in the entire story of the zodiac in general, right? And so instead of isolating each one, what is the story of the zodiac? Now in Finnish, the names of the months are clear. Just like when you name the plants, kind of what they're used for and things like that. They also did that with the months, the names of the months. And now our months are all messed up, but to understand the months better, we understand the 12 signs also, right? And so when the sun rises in Taurus, you put the plow on the cow, plant the seeds. It's kind of like a farmer's almanac. But what are we talking about when we're talking about ambrosia, bringing up to Zeus and the sign of Aquarius, right? Or the pilbuge, the bow and arrow, the bow and arrow for Sagittarius, things like that. So this is also not just giving people a calendar and a way to measure time and know what time of year and survive and live according to the angles of the sun, but this is in root. In the time that root was made, you wouldn't need to worry about all that. And these things, these aspects of having winter and summer and all the different seasons wouldn't have been existing, especially in Udenma. So you'd still have your day and night cycles. So it seems like, just as I kind of wanted to point out that the Ursa Major or Minor has also 7 stars, is because a much better knowledge of the astronomy, and to kind of encode this way to survive and flourish. But what's missing in everyone's conversations of astrology is how to make more people. And I think the Bock Saga fills this gaps of what these other signs are really talking about, whether even if it's Pisces, like what if that's the sperm, or and the ambrosia is also that, right? And Sagittarius, that's a lovemaking symbol. A pilbuge just means bow if you look it up, but the peel is like, when you peel back the head from the head, and so these are fertility symbols, right? And so you can apply that also to all of the different signs that aren't specifically talking about more farming, or like we have the virgins that come out and harvest the wheat in Virgo, right? That of the things you planted in Taurus and Libra and stuff like that. It's all of the meanings of both fertility and farming and agriculture and everything like that. Things that happen on Engs, and throughout. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot there, and I'm still trying to work it out in my head, but yeah.
I like that. I'm curious about the death rites. So we talk a lot about the birthing, but not as much about the death rites about it. So I'm curious, Johan, what's the word for ambrosia in root? Do you know?
Ambrosia.
It's the same.
In Saga, it's the word of the body liquid when it comes to the top of the pyramid.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is amber. I have a theory that amber is liquefied, or solidified soul, and that's why it's so important, because when these trees were destroyed, right, it's so important that those ancestors that were traveling through the tree at the time were captured in this fossilized version of it. But in addition, in the Iliad, for instance, Achilles, we know this based on when he was killed, and he's being told while he's in hell by Agamemnon what happened during his funeral rites. He was coated in amber, and they call it ambrosia, but he was coated in a liquefied amber. So they would heat it up and coat the body to keep it petrified almost until the time of burying, which would have been later on in the year. And we find in Native American cultures that they would keep the bones of their people. So they'd maybe put it up in a tree for a sky burial, but they'd collect all the bones and they wouldn't bury them until a certain time of year as well. So it was all about the timing for the death rites.
What this reminded me of when you say amber, that ambrosia is amber and rose, and yeah. So the ambrosia is the amber that comes from the rose in this saga perspective.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah. In saga
there is some
perspective,
kind of timetable for when you go and fall in the saga. That I'm not exactly sure, but a person always can choose the day when they go and die. No, go and fall, because you don't die, you fall.
And that's in the paradise time, I think it was, right? Ekastupan, where they would choose the time. But I'm wondering if after that, after the first Ragnarok, was the timing changed? Because we find in different cultures that I think even in the saga they talk about, they weren't sure if they would be returning to the Allfather. So that's why we get mummification and things.
Yeah. That comes in the Egyptian culture, this mummification, because they're not sure that will the centrifugal forces drive the Phrygia from Egypt up back to hell. So then they
My
start
theory is maybe we found that in the mound culture of Americas as well. They're situated to north most of the time. Okay. But they were buried, they weren't burned. So did they not know if they were going to go back? Were they waiting for someone that knew the saga to come dig them up when they knew, if that makes sense?
Could be, yeah. There is a whole thing in the mummification process that maybe have to do connected to saga in this, but like, I'm not so detailed knowing in that part, but it's small pieces.
The death rites, they're mysterious as well.
You mentioned. Go ahead. I'll say, Dustin, Dylan rather mentioned the sky burial. Did any of y'all watch that sky burial video I posted yesterday? Yeah, so there's like a whole process that they do once the person passes to get the body ready, and certain things with the organs and the bones and the whole thing, like, and then they feed the body to the vulture. But very interesting.
You find that in Tibet, you find that in native cultures of Americas, you find it in the Celtic cultures, so they had sky burials as well, in Irish cultures.
And there's a series of books, I don't know if it's all the same author, but there's 3 of them that I have that are all about how people honor the past. And there's certain cultures where they actually keep the mummified body of the person in the house in like a little glass box, and it's wearing its favorite hat and its favorite glasses, and they carry it around on its birthday. And obviously we've heard of these, like the catacombs in Paris and whatnot. They're just like, how many, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people's worth of bones, like strategically placed underground. It's insane.
Yeah.
And then we got like, go ahead.
I was going to say, you find a lot of that, the dead, the burials within the house in like Southeast Asian cultures, all the way through to North Australia. They may even eat the meat. There's like a delicacy, but you always keep the bones. That was like the number one. And that ties back to even in Assyria, in some of these clay tablets, they talk about how they'll grind the bones of their enemies' ancestors. That would be like one of the worst possible things that could happen, be to get your ancestors' bones ground up.
When I was in Ecuador, I saw a real shrunken head of like the shamanic lineage that this guy was carrying down, and he brought it to ceremony and it was put on the altar. And at one point, it disappeared off the altar, and they got everyone together and was like questioning if anyone knew what happened to it. And I was scared. I was like, oh my God, this guy, he was like, did this chant. And I was literally scared. I was like, did I do it? And what happened was some wild dog ended up grabbing it off of the altar and took it into the bushes, and this guy found it the next day. And like, it was crazy.
I was just thinking how this concept of life and death, Bock Saga is very, it flows through, so we have like the soul, the spirit, the Phrygia, and there's got to be this. One of my big questions too of the saga is exactly how this idea works. And with the ambrosia, it's through the offering system that it becomes so dense that it turns gold colored by the time it reaches the peak in the offering. But also the air and the Himmel itself which is heaven, that all congregating in this area. And so when he's breathing in and breathing out, it's somehow getting into this energy or force or of, one of these things that we don't see or hear, but it happens as part of the natural process. And it's got to be in the word somehow that make it clear what the right way to die is.
Johan, do you know if in Root or if even in the saga, if there was any feminine side help during that process of the breathing in of the souls for the Bock? Was there anything there that they were lighting up?
Not as I know.
Not that you know.
I understand that, like the Lemminkäinen's breathing is just like a natural process that he has to be in Uudemmaa, because if all the souls Fylgia fly up, the like it's the most dense of souls there, so he is able to breathe the most into the system back.
Got it.
But that part I'm not so familiar if there is any feminine in it.
Just the breathing, it makes me think as well of these mystery cults of burning these different herbs and botanicals,
But this Valkyria itself, it's at least in the Norse mythology a female. So these forces of Fylgia and Valkyria can have to do with the female side.
Okay, and they have wings.
Like, yeah, figuratively. Because like the Fylgia is the presentation of the white dove that the swan, the Jotun, holds with the beak in its mouth.
Got it.
And the other in the other end. This has to do with the feminine, probably, then the soul travel of itself. And then when it's bred, then it becomes the sperm.
Do you think he was a nose breather or a mouth breather?
Did he mew?
Hey, true story. When I was in Cuba, I smoked a joint of very questionable ganja in a receipt with 2 different color inks on it through my nose. That's how the locals were doing it.
But like when smoking tobacco, when you're smoking through the nose, it has much more different effect directly.
I've never smoked a blunt through my nose, but in ceremony, they will blow powdered tobacco up your nose or squirt liquid tobacco in your nose. And it's not very pleasant for me personally, but some people like it. I had it come out of my eyes once, I swear.
Yeah, for sure.
When we were young, we used to smoke the blunts in our nose just to get super zooted, before you go surfing.
I'm just thinking if this question can be of where you breathe it in. Is it in the words of the nose and the mouth, the näsa and the mun, nenä and suu?
When a child is born, the woman is like, I've never actually been to a live childbirth. Maybe a couple of you guys have. But yeah, like the power of breath through that process. And even, there's these orgasmic births, right? So like, that's something I was actually just thinking about the other day after me and Dylan had that conversation about the women's mystery of like childbirth in the saga. I can't recall anything personally.
That's the women's side that we don't know so much about.
Yeah, that's another one of those mysteries we wish we knew.
Yeah.
I have to go. Lunchtime for the kids. It's been good, guys. Thank you very
Yeah.
All right,
much.
brother.
Thank you.
All right.
Hope to come back anytime if you guys don't mind.
Sure. Of course.
Yep. Very nice to meet you, Johan, as well.
Hey, you too.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too, Dylan.
Bye-bye.
Peace, brother.
Peace.
I'm probably on the same page as him here pretty soon too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
we're
too.
getting-
We have already sunset here, and
Just getting the 3 hours. It's about perfect time here, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. Went over a lot. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I like just the blah blah. Let's, just whatever comes out.
Yeah, it's a great mix. Of just different angles to approach any topic is like super interesting to get into.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the Bible quote, but someone was asking this artist who passed away, one of my favorite reggae artists, Vaughn Benjamin from Virgin Islands, about his process of writing music and how does he come up with it, and like, is there a process? He's like, no, I just sit there with the paper and pen right on the spot and just write it right there. And he quoted, but he didn't say that. He quoted this Bible quote where he says, I don't plan what to say. I just let spirit speak through me when it's the time to speak. And I was like, man, that's deep. And that's kind of like, like talking in rhyme and just, you're freestyling. You're kind of just whatever comes out, and it's,
Yeah, that comes very much out of the spirit, this rapid freestyle moment of you just get 2-3 words and boom, 3 minutes of blah blah. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to see how the sound system expresses itself in pretty much any topic, and kind of leads to the same or similar conclusions. It's like, where does this come from, or what does this mean? And it's like you can just break up the word and it kind of reveals itself in a very special way, and then you're like, oh my god, that reminds me of this and this and this. And you can make all these different connections that seem separate or you wouldn't make before until you bring the sounds into it. Friggin' cool. The story. Beautiful. All right. You want to finish on a rhyme, Thor?
Oh man.
Put you on the spot.
Acapella?
Acapelli, the Gumma's game.
Hey, yo,
Oh wow.
all right. It's the BOCK. We gotta take it back. Sound system. Relearn the ABC. If you don't see, you gotta share the rap. What goes around comes around. Hey, I got a ring. That was my grandpa. Give thanks for the haka. Yarra.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Boom.
Like, share, subscribe. Check me out on SoundCloud. Buy my album. No, I'm just playing.
How many books you got in your library, you think?
Man. Getting close to 2,000 maybe.
Wow.
I haven't actually counted because I'm always moving stuff around and moving shelves, and there's like books behind books. Some of the shelves are 2 layers back, and I even have books that I haven't even found yet since I moved 3 years ago. Like, that I'm like, they got to be here, but I'm almost like, man, if I lost that box, it's like some gems in there. Anyway.
You gone
And then they
through
go
most
back
of them, or?
Dustin?
Oh, is that asking if you've gone through most of them, you think, or like half of them, or what percentage?
No way, man.
Not
No
like go
way.
through hard, but at least.
I mean, usually
out.
when I first get a book, I'll scan through it and see what's going on. But I kind of just the way I am, I shift pretty fast in what I'm into as far as like focus. So I'm just kind of like to have things on deck. So if I'm like, oh, what's this? I'm thinking about this. I got a book about that. Let me go pull it off the shelf real quick and, reference that. So I'm also into the idea of using using the phone and internet and technology less. And rather than like, oh, I'm going to look that up on my phone when I'm just sitting here, I could just go to my bookshelf and pull a book out and look it up instead. But
I'm so mind blown when he said acapella and Pella is game and Aka is Aka.
I mean, think about all these nursery rhymes and little jingles and stuff that we were taught as youth, and there's got to be some hidden little meanings behind it and why these traditions of these songs and little games and duck duck goose and whatever. Mother Goose's rhymes and
I just put in acapella and it came up as a Swahili word, which means he asked.
Nice.
Swahili is Hakuna Matata.
Aka, Muna.
Hakuna Matata. The ha is to have, ku is the moon, and hakuna, and na is the Isis knowledge. And then ma is the mother, and ta is the take.
Mm-hmm.
How does that become to easy life?
Yeah, all the that was something early on in the saga too, was like the idea of like a lot of these nursery rhymes or the old stories that are very blatantly in Bock Saga. Snow White.
Yeah. Snow White and these stories, as I understand, they are Rosette stories. So after when, especially in Charlemagne's time in the 1800s, 800s, back then, like he was starting to execute the Central European king system or the leader system. And then from all these executed king houses, there started to come rabbis that were part of these Baltic countries, and these rabbis and these maybe Narso, so they come and become the kind of the rulers of these old castles in Europe. And then they take their part of the saga, which is kind of the root story. And this kind of becomes transformed then during our past time to become these Disney stories, or Brothers Grimm stories. Or many are like the Cinderella castle and all this has to do, was it maybe with the Raseborg castle? So there is kind of these references between these fairy tales and the saga stories in this perspective.
Maybe Mother Goose was the mother swan.
But the goose is the andfågel, which I understand to be the akka.
The golden egg?
The golden egg. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then the swan and the goose are kind of family in a way, and they evolve from each other to some extent.
Remember Rumpelstiltskin?
Oh yeah. You know that one, Johan?
Another gold one.
I maybe don't know so well the stories in English.
I think it was like he was weaving straw into gold, or she was. Do you remember, Dustin?
Yeah. It was like a pact though. Like it was like a deal. There's like a deal made. I think you were starting off better than me. That's an interesting name, Rumpelstiltskin.
You know what it is in Finnish?
It's German. It's
the Finnish name of it. It's titelin Tore, so it's the title's Thor. The Thor of the title.
Whoa. Interesting.
Okay, here. It's a miller's daughter who is tasked with an impossible challenge by the king. The miller boasted to the king that his daughter can spin straw into gold, and demanded that. And then the king demanded she prove it, and it was an impossible task. So until a little mysterious man appeared and offered to exchange her firstborn child to do the deed, and he agreed. And the little man spun the straw into gold. And when the king saw it, he was impressed and married the miller's daughter. But the little man returned when the queen had her first child to keep the remainder of the bargain. And the queen begged for mercy and offered her a chance to keep her child if she can guess his name within 3 days. And searching for his name, overheard him singing a song revealing his name to be Rumpelstiltskin. Armed with this knowledge, the queen confronted him and correctly guessed his name, and then he was defeated and he vanished and never was seen again. And she kept his child, and the kingdom was saved from Rumpelstiltskin's grasp.
Nice.
Yeah, start then to interpret what does this mean.
Yeah. So what would it mean in? You said it something to do with tour.
It's another name. It's title Thor, like titteli Tore.
Wonder what his name means in German.
It says that Rumpel is like not the thunder, but like the bumbling. What is bullra?
Well, using root, you got kin and skin at the very end. Rumpel, still.
Before that, you have silt.
Stilt. Yeah. Kin. Rumpel.
A rumpa is the ass, but a room is a room.
Rump
And
so
the
big
bell
it filled
can
the
be
room.
spare. How'd you say, Thor?
I said the rump so big it filled the whole room.
It's also known as tomti tot or päron skaft, where is the shaft of the pear, the fruit. Like there's many names in different cultures.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it says like rumpel is like to rattle or clatter, and then stiltchen is a form of still, meaning like little stilt or little post.
Yeah, that's the stilts which you walk with when you want to either become
taller.
Because he was a little man, maybe he needed the stilts to not look like he was so short. Blend in.
But wasn't he a dwarf?
I think so, yeah.
So he's a little man. Huh. All right. Well, cheers.
Yeah, yeah. Good show. Good show.
Yeah. Check on the hoodlum stuff.
The hoodlum.
The offspring.
There you go. All right, folks. Well, yeah, that's been fun. Good chatting with y'all.
Yeah.
This is very nice.
All right. The librarian. All right. Cut it off. Oh, blow the candle out first.
Let's blow the candle.
There we go. Now it's official.
Good night. Thank you, misters.
Good night. Good day.
Hasta luego. See you.
Peace.